everybody. Welcome to the L-5 podcast. We are back with another full episode review. Tonight, we decided to watch the new film that's on Peacock called My Son.
Have you even thought what sort of father you've been to your son?
I know I'm a bad dad. I know I'm never here. But I think I found something. Just have a look at this.
And this was Dana's choice. So do you want to talk about the movie My Son, which stars James McAvoy and Claire Foy?
All right, so I'm going to read you the exact wording from Wikipedia about this movie in terms of the premise. It says, a man goes to see his ex-wife in search of answers about the disappearance of their son. That's it.
Pretty generic.
All right, yeah, okay. So a couple things. This movie was actually a remake, which I didn't realize at the time. And I think it was a remake of a movie that had came out in 2017. So it was like a very recent remake, which is kind of weird to me. But the neat thing about this movie, or the thing that kind of caught my eye and the reason I had suggested to the group is something that maybe we should watch, is because the lead actor in this movie was not given a script. So he is given enough information to know about his character and what type of maybe job he had or what he did, but the actual words as to what he says and how he responds to the other characters in the movie, he did not have that. So he is making that up as he goes. And so I thought, wow, this will be really neat to see how this works out. And then we could talk about what we thought as we get into it. Did we do first 17 minutes? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did 17.
Okay. I actually didn't write anything down by mistake. I thought I did, but I did not. And so I really don't 100% remember what happened in those first 17 minutes. Other than as we were watching it, I got this text going back and forth with Brian about if there was, a zombie in the movie, or was this movie about zombies? And, our relationship, we all joke a lot. So we were just like, ha, ha, ha. And I asked him, I said, Brian, are you watching the movie or something like, and I said, my son. And Brian, you want to tell everybody what you said?
We were all trying to watch My Son except for me. I was watching a different movie. Because we were also talking about watching something else, Carriers with Chris Pine. So I was watching Carriers about all these people with, this disease. And I'm like, are they just diseased, or are they zombies too? And that didn't make any sense for the My Son movie. Now I understand why you were confused.
And then we were talking about dogs barking, and Brian's like, there are no dogs in mine. And so then I was like, Brian, are you watching the movie My Son? And you said yes, like a good little boy.
You were talking to me. Are you watching the right movie, My Son?
I was like, what? I honestly thought, okay, he's just being funny.
Brian was on Netflix searching for it. It's on Peacock, Brian.
But in all fairness, guys, we talk like most people do when they text. I'll be like, you watching My Son? We didn't put all the words there necessary to have a real, conversation. But it was just so hilarious reading all this, because for the longest time, Brian, I really thought we were all watching the same thing and you were just being funny.
No.
So that's my first 17 minutes. Over to Jeremy.
All right. The first, y'all know, the premise of the first 17 is to get an idea, a glimpse, how you think the movie will be, if you like it. And yeah, it was pretty dry. He rolls up to the scene and, without spoiling it, obviously a father, he's looking for a son he's been missing 7-8 years or whatnot. But I knew the premise, again, the script thing, but I like James McAvoy as an actor, but it was okay. It gave me British vibes. It gave me, I've been to Scotland before, so it gave me very like kind of Scotland vibe. I don't know why, but I was like, damn, this is like Scotland. So that's what I put. I was like, okay, it's beautifully shot, like the scenery. It was super 4K, very beautiful, the brightness. So the actual aesthetic of the camera and photography was great. Love that. Kudos to them, but the actual story was kind of dragging to me. It was more of a slow, I put in my notes like slow, long story, kind of drawn out, as opposed to a lot of our 17 minutes. We get like a lot to decipher. This was very much a couple things. So I mean, I gave it like a 2.5 or 3. I gave it a 2.5. It just wasn't doing it for me, but it was very beautiful to watch. But there was nothing to bring me back. So it's like, okay, I'll watch the rest of it, and I'll go on with kind of how I felt with the rest of the movie. But so far, it was a 2.5. Didn't give me enough. Pass it to Brian.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say real quick, I didn't give it a score because I don't remember what I watched. But the comedy aspect was a 5. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Oh yeah, so I'm just saying that I knew what was going on. I knew McAvoy was improvising his lines. I was curious if he knew, like, I was just sort of kind of fascinated in wondering, did he know certain things, like whatever choreography was going to happen, or later in the movie it seemed like it would have made more impactful if he didn't know that, if he had to figure out how to do all of this stuff also, because there were some clever things later on. But I was giving this a 5 already because I was just fascinated by the thing. But it was very slow. If you didn't know that he was improvising, you think, man, this is really slow and boring. Mm-hmm. So I think that trick kind of helped it, at least because it made me more interested in what was going to happen. So I was giving it a little bit more to it. So I was pretty excited about the whole idea. I am most curious to hear from Stacy.
I didn't know he was making up the lines as he was ad-libbing or as he was going, which makes it a little bit different, because I was thinking too, because I was not with the first 17 minutes. I mean, it was like you said, very slow. And now that you said that, I might go and look at it again just to kind of see, really pay attention to that kind of thing. And I know every time we're on these calls and we see, podcasts, y'all talk about, and the cinematography, and they did this kind of lighting and all that. And I'm like, I'm just looking at the plot. I'm like, I didn't notice the cinematography. Y'all tell me, what does that cinematography mean? I don't really know anything much about that.
It was just dreary to me.
And it was just like, it was wet, rainy, and I knew the premise of that. Okay, son is missing, and he's basically an absentee father, and now you're gonna come up concerned when you weren't there to begin with. So, and it was dragging. I'm like, do I care about his son? Do I care about him? It was just that slow for me. Mm-hmm. But now with new eyes, I may go ahead and watch it again just to actually see, do I have a different feeling about it now that I know that he is doing that on his own and not going from a script. Because without us, I mean, right now it's like,
honestly, other than giving him credit, if you think he did a good job, the movie is still the movie. So
I mean, it's still that, but I mean, I might give him more credit because of that. Because really, I mean, first 17 minutes, I'm gonna say it was like a 2.5. That was it. Next thing would be spoiler. It's just the whole movie. I was just like, what's going on? I was just like looking down his face, like, what did I miss? I just really was not into this at all.
Hey, Brian, what you watching? It sounds better.
It did.
Okay, so I will.
He said zombie. I wasn't watching it because I said I was behind on that, so I wasn't watching it. But when he said to my zombie, I was like, "Oh, this might be good." I was like, but when I was like, "When does a zombie come up? When does he become a zombie?" Because I didn't read the whole chain, but I was like, so is he missing the lake? He's gonna be a zombie? That's what I thought for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I will piggyback on what Brian said and what Stacey's saying and everybody's saying is that same thing for me. Like I knew what was going on. Dana told me what was going on before we started. And so I was intrigued just by the idea of this happening, somebody not being scripted and interactive. But like everybody else is saying, it was very slow. I did love the cinematography. There's some really nice shots of almost, I think there may be drone shots of where the car's driving and there's like a lake and mountains and all that kind of stuff. It was very beautiful to look at. I was distracted as well when Dana was talking to Brian in the text message about what we were watching, and we were laughing so hard I probably missed a couple of things. But there's a scene, this is not spoiling anything, but there's a scene where he's there with the police and they're going into the woods and the dogs are barking. And two things that happen. Brian, at that point, is when he's asking about the zombies. So I'm like, oh crap, we're going into the woods, we're going to find some zombies. And then two, the dogs are barking so loud that Pop-Tart started going crazy and was barking at the movie. So I got all these distractions going on that I didn't really know how I felt about watching this movie. I was bored because it was slow, but then I'm still also interested because I want to see what's going to happen with James McAvoy and how he's going to interact with all this stuff. So I was probably like at about a 3 because it was enough for me to keep watching. There was enough interest there in the first 17 minutes, but we can go ahead and talk about what happened after the first 17 minutes. Dana, if you want to continue to tell what you're
Sure.
after that.
So I will go ahead and
put up a spoiler alert now because we're probably spoil this movie.
Warning, 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 warning.
I honestly, because I'm not sure what there's really to spoil. I will say this much though. This movie to me was like it had a parlor trick, and that was that he didn't know, the script. Other than that, this movie, I did not like it, and I would not have watched it. And I felt bad for recommending it to y'all. Because I just seem to recommend some of the worst movies. But anyway, so with this one, I just felt like the story in itself, like I think Stacey mentioned this. I didn't care anything about the family, the mom, the son, whether they found him, nothing. I still don't know, having watched this. So just to give you a little bit of back end, some people steal the son, or kidnap the son for a sex ring, sex slavery or whatever, which is hinted at, I think, but I don't know if it's really fully put out there like that. I don't remember. Anyway,
no, I picked that up, yeah.
There's some hints about some type of job the dad has that they, again, never really tell us. They make it at some point sound like maybe his job has something to do with why the kid got kidnapped, but it doesn't. I don't think, because they were doing sex play and stuff, and I don't think that had anything to do with the father's job. Then there's some questions at the end. If the father is going to jail, and what is he going to jail for, guys? I'm gonna tell you this. So this was one I had to wiki the ending, right? And just look to see what other people had said. And some people thought he was going to jail for his business dealings. I thought he was going to jail because of the people he killed.
Yeah.
And I say people, but I think he only killed, because at first we didn't know if he had actually killed the guy whose toes or whatever he cut off, or foot, whatever. But anyway, all that to say, the movie was just, it was unrealistic. It was just, it was a hodgepodge of stuff, and I'll let y'all talk about that. But the one thing I wanted to focus on, Brian, you kind of talked about this, is so when I first started watching, I was like, I thought, oh, he knows nothing. This will be great. But it was very clear that he knew something, right? Because, and I don't know if they like, okay, record it your way. All right, let me give you a little bit of information now. Try, because in my mind, some of his things, what he was responding, it was too formulated. It wasn't realistic to what I would have said if nobody had given me a script. And I was like, well, what made him say that? Like, that just seems odd to me. Like, most people would be like, no, that's my son or something. I'm making it up. And he'd be like, no, I took him to Africa last year. And I'm like, how would you know? And same thing with the fighting scenes. Like, if they had just went for it, but obviously you can't truly do that without somebody maybe getting hurt. So
yeah.
I'm not clear on really how much of a script he did have and didn't have. I know, obviously, like I said initially, he had some concept, but I think he had more than just a concept after watching it more. I just didn't feel like everything that came out of his mouth. Because there were too many ways he could have said something that would have changed the entire direction of this story. And I don't, because this is a remake, I don't think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. So I want to just jump in there and say a couple of things where they dropped off the whole story plot points about his job. We just recently did a review of a very interactive movie, and that clearly you can't make your whole script interactive and throw out clues that big and then just avoid them. And so when you mentioned that him burning the guy's feet, it's like he didn't just go into the barn and improvise and look around and say, here's a torch, I'm going to burn your feet off,
Right.
I mean, there's a limit to there. So that makes it really kind of interesting to me. I want to see the behind the scenes making of, story. I'll watch those extra things that were on the imaginary DVD that I'll never see, they'll show up on YouTube somewhere one day. But what I thought was also really interesting is later in the film, I thought that it felt really improv-y to me. Like, that didn't feel so scripted or obvious to do that particular scene, that torture scene. And then later when he goes to where the kidnappers are, and he lures everybody out individually, because it was 3-on-1. And if he just stormed in and attacked, it would have been over real fast. But he lured everybody out one by one, and in fairly clever ways. I'm like, he didn't just figure that out, but this feels like it was it didn't feel like it was written or plotted out that way. So I want to give it a couple of points for that, because it just felt like it was like I don't know. I didn't feel like it was super predictable. I think that's what I want to say.
Well, I think on it because of the previous thing that we just viewed, when we say he didn't have like the script, I think he just didn't have a script of what he's going to say. But he did at every point. It's like, okay, at this scene, this is what's going to happen. Because now you're saying that, and that scene where he was torching the guy, it's like, if I was the other actor and he just did a blowtorch, I'm like, wait a minute.
Cut.
That was not what we had in the script. There's got to have been something, that says you're going to do this.
Right.
Improvise what you're saying, but something had to been said, because there is too much stuff that now that I'm thinking about it, that you would have to be like, wait a minute, stop.
Right.
Or like you said about, because the only what probably got interesting was near the end. And again, I think it was maybe been when, had 3 different people. And I think maybe he was given, at this point then, if you're saying that, he was probably given that there's 3 people in the house. You need to lure one person at a time. How would you do that? And I guess that kind of thing. And they are told he's going to lure y'all out one by one. I mean, I'm not sure what they were exactly told, but I mean, somebody had to have gone and given him a scenario. Mm-hmm. But now, also said about talking about his job and kind of dropped that off. And I was like, I'm glad y'all said that, because I was like, did I miss something? How come you get a phone call about them emptying the office and I never hear anything back about that? So I was like, did I miss Did I miss a whole plot point? I mean, I know I'll be doing other stuff when I'm watching some of these. Like, what did I miss? Because it was totally that, and then there was nothing about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again with the child sex ring, when I figured that that's what was going on, I was like, so you're gonna take just kids from us? I just thought that was just not you should kidnap children, but you want to kidnap kids like just from a park or someplace like that. And as soon as it became known that he was somebody, they would have, they would have dumped the kid. They either killed him or got rid of him. I just didn't think that was realistic at all about choosing him. And that's why I was thinking, did they choose him for a reason? Because if you were just picking up random kids, there would have been easier pickings elsewhere.
Yeah. Good point. Jeremy, what do you think?
This movie was whack.
It broke my heart.
It broke my heart. Look, James McAvoy again. I like him as an actor in various movies. We've seen and reviewed various James McAvoy movies, but this one ain't it. There's a lot of plot points that my peers have mentioned. I'm not going to repeat those that were really stood out for me. Like, I think the last act was probably the best act, but man, that early obviously the first 17, the first and second act was kind of slow. Well, it was slow, and it just didn't do it for me, man. The character development, the fact that he, I know again, script is the big elephant in the room, but it didn't do it for me because I was wanting something significant and it didn't give it to me. And I was really like almost about to fall asleep during it, but I went back and reviewed what I was very tired in. I was like, okay, I might have missed some stuff, and it still didn't intrigue me. So I do like some of the like sort of action pieces that you all mentioned, but that didn't carry the film for me. So it wasn't enough. It was more cons than pros. And so whenever I have that scenario, I take my score down. So it went down from a 2.5 to a 1.5. So.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some scores. I'll just say, piggyback on what everybody else is saying. I agree with you 1,000%. It was slow. This movie was not good. And I found it really interesting how one thing that I did find interesting, this is in a bad way, is that he wasn't given a script. So he's basically supposed to be improvising his lines. There's not really a whole lot that he says. Like, there's a lot of grunting. There's a lot of repeating the same words when he's just like, where's my son? Where's my son? Where's my son? I was like, so it's really interesting to see that without a script, without a screenplay, you can't really just make up dialogue that you see. Like, scripts are really, really thick. There's a lot of dialogue that goes on in there. And sometimes when you have a movie like when we saw No Sudden Move, and you have 13 characters in there, that's a lot of dialogue to write for a lot of different characters to keep the plot going, especially if it's really convoluted or whatever. This plot was not really that convoluted, and he still didn't really have a whole lot to say. Like, he couldn't come up with a lot of different lines that would make things interesting or sound like he really is scripted when he's not. So I found that a little bit interesting, but not really in a positive way. I mean, it was really bad. I did not like this movie. When I first started the 17 minutes, I gave it a 3. And at the end of the day, it ended up with a 1. This is probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year, to be honest with you.
Corey, when you said that,
what?
I had this thought about Joey Tribbiani method acting from Friends, the smell the fart acting, where you're not actually saying anything, you're just reacting, and you're like, doing that. So there was
single girlfriends crowd.
So yeah, so I did go down from my first 17, where I'm super excited about this. This is a 5. But I didn't go down quite so low. I just brought it back down to a 4 because I did think that it was really an interesting idea. So I want to go and see the other movie, the original movie, and I want to see more about how they make it, because I'm super interested in the behind the scenes of anything. So that was my score for this, but not because it was this a stellar, really big 4 for me. It's just like it got some points for the other reasons.
Stacey?
What did I start off as, a 2.5?
Yeah.
Natalie said that he's done, he didn't have a script. It's gonna stay at 2.5 instead of drop like would have. So it did not really capture my attention at all, except for the end. And I think I probably am more interested now in it because y'all said he didn't have a script, but not enough to go back really to see it. 2.5.
And Dana?
So I feel like I've been lied to. I'm mistrustful of what not having a script actually means. And I think I need to know a little bit more about that because, again, I think we all recognize not having a script doesn't mean not giving premise and giving some direction. But again, some of the stuff he said, I just felt like what made him say that, it just didn't feel natural to me. So if you do this, I love the concept of what they did. I think it has real great potential to be, maybe get somebody who's not an actor to do it. That'd be even crazier. But it has potential to be really interesting. Maybe a better movie, a better premise or something where we can really see. Because to your point, there was a lot of not actual talking, and there were so many things wrong with the actual movie itself and the story and things that just left off that really, I think most of us, or at least when I went into this movie, my whole point was to see how this actor who doesn't have a script relates to everything that's going on, right? I didn't also need to be hit with a bad story and all this other stuff. Like it's too many parts moving around for me to keep up with all that. I wanted it to be a good story, and then let's see how he reacts to it. Anyway, so I'm giving it a 2. But Brian, I am very interested in the behind the scenes. So if you do watch it, if you will tell me how it goes, or let me know where you found it.
We'll share it, and if I find some stuff, we'll put them in the comment. We'll put them in the comments or the description, about a little bit more information about all of that. But what would y'all think about a completely improvised movie like the whose line is it anyway kind of thing, where everybody is improvising absolutely everything, and the whole thing just goes totally off the rails?
It depends on the actors, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, they'd have to totally be capable of doing the improv, right? So some of the the stars of improv. And
that would be to me more of a comedy because that's the only people I've actually seen do the improv well.
Yes.
I don't know enough about some of the actors and actresses that we've seen in some of these movies. Can they really do improv well?
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. Because I know if I was, when y'all say my name and say, Stacey, what do you think about the movie? I'm like, if I'm not prepared initially, I'm like, oh my God, dear Ned, like, so I think that really is just going to depend on the actor they choose for those.
Yeah.
So I do think the show is amazing. Whose line is it anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually think that would be interesting to see because I've never seen them do a long format version of I've just seen the little segments, I guess. That would be interesting because they are very good at it. Mm-hmm. I mean it has potential.
Let's do it.
It has potential, but I'll be like Stacey. You don't want me in that because I'm gonna put us into. You know what? I'm gonna back us into a corner that we can't get out of, and so trying to be silly, and now we're stuck on something that we realistically can't get out of. And now we're doing something like making it Roseanne's dream that she won the lottery. So I can't stand with stuff like that.
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't be good.
Interesting.
Yeah, just depends on the plot. Like for it kind of is subjective based on kind of what type of movies you like too. Like for me, I would, if Brian was to pose that question to me, it would be an action movie where these actors could do a sequence and do certain things, and it would be a certain boundary. So it would be like a time limit Like these are things I think about that could be well based on, again, the actors, and then based on kind of what their like end goal is. And you could make it fun and stuff like that. But I think if you're thinking comedy, again, that's a long time to make somebody laugh unless you're a natural comedian or somebody that's like an actor that a lot of people, again, not subjective, but objectively a lot of people like. So I think you have to, what I'm saying is you also have to think about those things within the construct of like making it. But I would watch it. Like, if I think that's what worried me a little about this film is that I was like, I know the premise, but it still didn't deliver. Like it's still it. So yeah. So I would be okay with it. To answer your question, I would be okay watching something like that.
What I'm interested to know, Brian, if you find out, is if he had actually seen the original movie.
Yeah, me too. I can't imagine that
he did.
He had. I would say he probably didn't. That would be my guess.
I don't know.
But we'll find out.
Well, Jeremy, in your action field, whose line is it anyway? Somebody's going to die. So I'll go ahead and put that out there.
Look, somebody need to be the sacrifice. Look, who ain't got paid in a month? I mean.
Okay, but now we're in Guns Akimbo. We're sitting here watching real people die for
That would be hilarious.
Right.
Well, that's like, did you guys ever see that movie with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, where they were like police agents, like detectives, and The Rock and Samuel Jackson are police agents, all in the same bureau? And there's a scene like right at the beginning, because you don't know that The Rock and Samuel Jackson are in this movie with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell in a comedy, right? So when you see them, you're like, oh, this is cool. And so they're supposed to be the cool cops. Samuel Jackson and Dwayne The Rock Johnson are supposed to be the cool cops. So everybody loves them in the precinct or whatever. They die in the first 10 minutes.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, they die in the first 10 minutes. So like they're up on the roof and they're in this action scene, they're acting all crazy. He's like, oh, we can make this jump. They jump off the roof and they die. And you're just like, what? I did not expect that.
Yeah.
It was really funny. I'm sorry, it was a little side.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, I know Dana's saying somebody or people would have to be sacrificed, but look,
yeah,
man, like that type of stuff. And Corey, let me know the name of that movie. I'm sitting here.
I'll find out what it is. It's just
like
hilarious.
Stuff like that is hilarious to me.
It was hilarious. So yeah. Anyways, so if you guys got to and it's my son is sitting at 37 on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Okay,
good. I feel justified.
I would say this is a pass. But if you got a chance to watch My Son, which is on the Peacock network, please leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought and what you'd give it a rating out of 1 to 5 stars. And with that, we will see you guys next time.
Bye.